Welcome, my love. By the way, apologies in advance if you can hear dogs barking. This is real life, okay? I am currently in Georgia and there's a lot of dogs in Batumi, Georgia. They're all over the place. And there's nothing you can do about it. Hopefully, the mic doesn't pick it up too crazy. Also doing laundry. Can you tell this is real life? Okay, I'm not here to serve you any, sterile idea or image of it's just things happen. We're living life for real and it's messy. Let's talk about cartography. I absolutely love cartography. I love it's we're gonna talk about that. This is gonna be a series because you know me, I talk a lot. I like to go deep. And this is kind of like of a soft introduction into the topic. And also, as usual, lately I have like a rough outline, but it's not as tight as I like it to be, as in as as rigid. Lately, I don't know what's going on. It's just I keep making those outlines and then I don't respect them. I'm just freestyling. I always freestyle to some extent, but lately it's just I don't want to deal with any crazy outlines. So it is what it is. We'll go with the flow. We're talking about cartography. Cartography. What is cartography? Cartography is literally the to put it simple, it's astrology, but astrology tied to places. So what that tells you, it tells you that every place has an energy. Now, surprise, surprise, it's like duh. We already knew that. But if you new here or if you've been around, listened to a few, checked into a few videos, episodes, or you would know that I love energy stuff. We talk about energy. I spend my life lately, it's actually my entire life, and now even more and more committed to it, really diving into understanding energy work, metaphysical world, everything I do, spirituality, astrology, all comes back down to that, understanding how the hell, energy of things, how it operates. And so, of course, the second I found out that there was an astrology that was dealing with just that, obviously I was drawn to it. And that's something that I've been studying more and more. By the way, in astrology, there are many branches, and it's just a never ending, it's a never ending hole of knowledge. So I've been really into cartography, and this is something that I'm looking to expand more on on the podcast as well. So astrocartography, astrology, cartography. Cartography, you can see the, carte, like maps. So astrology of maps, astrology of places. The energy of places. Now, this is really beautiful because the same way that it's based on your birth chart. Like I said, like every road leads to Rome. We always go back down to the foundational, which is your birth chart. I don't know why I forgot the camera was here, not here. So what that means is that it's what's beautiful is that based on your birth chart, you can travel in different places to take advantage of that energy more amplified. So for example, when you have your birth chart, right? We're gonna if, let's say you take a reading with me and then I'm gonna tell you a lot about your birth chart and then we could talk about like relationship based on your, Venus line, based on different things on your map, also your Mars and all of these things. So we can really play with different things like that. There's also your MC line and then the 10th house, which is really heavy focus on work and what you came here to do, your higher purpose. So what a lot of people can do, what a lot of people do is that they travel to certain places to actually harness the energy of that place. I know some people, they would, let's say they really want to focus on work, they would open their chart and try to find around the world where a certain line of them falls. So where can they find an energy? Let's say we're talking about someone that really wants to focus on work this year, right? On the map, we can open the map. It's all unique to each person, and then look. Let's say for where would they, like, they would have a very influential MC line, and it's actually really beautiful because it's when you go to that certain line, or another example I can give you, um before I used to live on a place that was very close to my Pluto line, right? My Pluto and my North Node line. Now Pluto is all about transformation. It's also a lot of drama. So no reason why for the last 3 years of my life I've had a lot of drama. I feel like I've lived 100 lives in just 3 years, and that's literally because we always want to be about like 200. Like not too far away from the line, but also not smack right in the middle of it. There's a certain space, a certain distance, and my line was very, very, very close to both my Pluto and my North Node. So living in that place, the experience that it gave me was very, it was so much transformation. And also the North Node is pretty much the path, the destination, the direction that your soul is taking for the life that you're living right now. So I had all of these examples were very karmic. Like it was like kind of like really like high destiny type of thing. Now of course we do have free will, but there's also like a certain like destiny, like some things that happen that they just have to happen. This is where like I use a lot of Kabbalistic astrology, because it's pretty much astrology from the perspective of your soul. In mainstream media, I mean in mainstream popular astrology culture, that's kind of like very close to evolutionary astrology. So this is all this to say that there is a way to play where you can travel to certain areas. Let's say someone is looking for love, they can travel to a Venus line. Now again, it's not always that simple, which is why it's very important to consult an astrologer, because you can't just travel. Venus represents love, it represents beauty, represents all of these good things, but you can't just travel to a Venus line. You have to take a look at your own birth chart, because that would also rely on how is your Venus position in your birth chart? Because depending on the aspects that is playing, that might actually be, detrimental to travel to a Venus line. So we can't just take a generic idea of, oh, I'm looking for love, let me go travel to my Venus line, because it depends on your own personal chart. If your Venus is really tightly, aspecting, so it's very close to, let's say, a Chiron, your Chiron, for example, Chiron, which is pretty much it's called the wounded warrior. It's pretty much, it tends to be a lot of healing stuff, a lot of drama in a way. I personally love Chiron, because I'm very into like doing the inner work and stuff like that. But I want people to understand that when they're traveling to maximize a certain energy, you can just blindly take, some Instagram knowledge, or, oh, if you're looking for love, just travel to your Venus, because it all depends on how is your Venus placed on your own personal birth chart. Because what happened is, wherever you travel, it will emphasize that energy, also based on your own birth chart, on your own map. So you can have two different people like traveling to their Venus and have a total different experience. One might actually really experience the blissful Disney love type of thing, while the other person, it might be a very not so great experience, just because of the way their Venus is aspecting in their chart, the way their Venus is placed, what else is around the Venus. Because remember, when we travel to those places, we're not just traveling to experience that energy on an amplified level, but it's also going to be amplified based on the setup that you already have in your own birth chart. I hope I'm not making this too complicated, because I always try to make this concepts quite simple. So, and also the thing is, it sounds great. If I'm gonna keep using the example of Venus and Pluto, because I think they're very easy to understand. Like it sounds really great, let me travel to these lines so I can, maximize that energy. However, of course, everything is life is not just, that perfect, beautiful Disneyland, because a lot of the time, a lot of those lines, they fall in the middle of nowhere. They fall in the middle of right in the middle of the sea, and then there's nothing there. There's nothing. There's no major, or it's all the way up north in the Arctic, and there's literally nowhere. For example, I really like to travel to my Venus Venus line because I like the placement of my Venus. I really do think it's a beautiful placement. I can say that. And whenever I travel to my Venus, by the way, example, it's story time. I'm gonna share some personal stuff here. Uh every time when I go to Israel, people always wonder, why do you go to Israel? Are you Jewish? And this and that, and all of the million questions. And then we have the whole like political thing that people bring into that and make it so complicated. But I'll be honest, the reason why I like traveling to Israel, it's because it's the only Venus line that I have. I can actually travel to. So my Venus line, based on my own birth chart, you can look all around the world. Again, my Venus MC, not my MC. Actually, yeah, it is my MC. My Is it my MC or is it my AC? It's my MC line. My Venus MC line is literally right passing through, literally, it lines up with Russia, it goes down Turkey, but then the cities that it lines up is are like all little villages, So it's not that easy for me to just travel to Russia and like in a random village. One day I like to experiment with that and report back to you guys on the podcast. I think it would be a fun experiment. But when we're looking back down the line, because it's like a vertical line through your birth chart, it doesn't really go anywhere. In Turkey, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's not like it's going through Istanbul. And then slowly it keeps going down, down, and then it's done in such a divine way. Like, it's not a coincidence, honestly. I'm still studying all of these things because I'm in awe whenever I look at the map. I'm like, wow, whoever drew this, it's not a coincidence. It passed right in the middle of Israel, all the way back down to, Sinai, to Egypt, but like around the Sharm el Sheikh area, and then it goes down. So this is why I like traveling to Israel, because when I travel to Israel, the experiences I have there are absolutely insane. For example, I was in Israel, let's say like 10 years ago, and I was sitting in a coffee shop because again it's my Venus line, right? So what it does is that it makes me more magnetic to people around me, and the way people are very receptive to me. And I know that sounds like really like egocentric, but it's not even like that. It's just like there's more receptivity and there's more exchange and there's just this general love, in the air, and it's just a beautiful energy, and it's like a win-win for everyone. The encounters that I have there are just absolutely magical. Now I'm just sharing these things to give you an example about what you can experience, by using cartography to travel to different lines to maximize those energies. So for once, I was traveling in Israel, which is again the only Venus MC line I have. Now, MC is pretty much, like I said before, MC is pretty much related to like kind of like your higher purpose. We're kind of like always trying to work towards that goal. Yes, it's also related to work, but it's kind of like the big purpose of it's like a North Star in a way, of your soul. So when you travel to that, people are gonna be receptive to you. They're gonna reflect back, the way that you like to be reflected inside. And it's just as if people see you and understand you without you even doing much. It's just there's such a beautiful communication and things just flow. And to give you an example, like 10 years ago, I was in the middle of nowhere, right, and then I stopped in the only coffee shop that was there, and then I sit in the coffee shop. I was trying to figure out, oh my goodness, it's 5 p.m, the sun's gonna set, and I won't have time to get home. I need to find a place to sleep, like a hotel or something. But the problem is I ran out of money, and the whole situation was crazy. And then because I thought I could just go to the ATM, but there was no ATM around, okay? And it was the wildest, crazy story. And I'm sitting here totally unfazed because it was a beautiful place where I was, but still trying to come up with, what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to sleep that night? And then the owner of the coffee shop approaches me, asks me the usual question, oh, how are you? What's your name? No, where are you from? And I really sense people's energy, so automatically I sense that he was okay. It's just crazy how once you really connect to, your gut feeling and your inner inner compass, how you can really start reading people. And that's the same way how, for example, when animals know when they're in danger, right? It's all because they're reading, like they're getting that energy and acting upon it. As humans, we can do the same thing. We have the same capacity. And this tuning into that has saved me in so many times in life and also connected me with like beautiful experiences. So I sensed the guy and I'm like, okay, I really feel safe with this guy. It's nothing. He had like a really like brotherly, fatherly energy coming out of him. And then he was like, "Oh, by the way, I have my sister. She's literally the same age as you. And then, I'd like for you to meet her. Come and meet me, in this address. Tell the taxi driver this and this address, and come and meet me tonight at 7 p.m." Now, this is so wild. I never do that. I don't know this guy. Like, what am I doing? But again, I didn't know where I was going to sleep that night. So, and then he's like, "Oh, don't worry, don't worry. You can stay with my sister. Like I said, you guys are the same age." And then I'm like, okay, I decided to trust my gut feeling. And then I end up in a taxi that it just nothing makes sense, but somehow everything just flows. It's just the magic of being on your Venus line. I'm telling you, if I was on my Mars line, which is kind of like more like Mars is more like aggressive. It's like you represent, like God of War and things like that. I wouldn't have been so bold. But even back then, I didn't even know it was my Venus line. But looking back, it makes so much sense. And then I ended up taking the taxi. Again, no money to pay for the taxi, but then I had the guy number. So when the taxi drops me where I was going, I ask him to call the guy. And then the guy comes and then he pays the taxi for me. It's just absolutely crazy. Of course, I give him the money after. But then and then he refused to take the money. It's just a crazy, crazy story. And then I meet up with him, and then when I'm following the address and I go in the back of the house, I'm like, oh my god, this is that the time where in the crazy story, in the crazy movies, I ended up dying. Oh my god, please, it's not my time yet. But I still felt like it was safe in my gut feeling, so I kept following my gut. And then all of a sudden, I'm like waiting for him in the back of the house. And then he comes, and I'm like, oh my God, where's his sister? And it's like, oh, don't worry, my sister's going to come. She's just coming from school. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? But I'm still trusting my gut because the signal I was getting was still like, it's okay, it's safe. But still, I didn't like that because it was already like 7 p.m. So it was already kind of like dark. And then eventually, like not that long after, 30 minutes later, his sister comes, and it was the sweetest lady ever. We were exactly the same age, and then we ended up spending time together. And then, like, she ended up not even wanting me to leave, inviting me to stay with her. And I ended up spending like 2 months in her house, refused me paying, like didn't accept me to pay rent, nothing at all. Not something I would agree to normally. But again, she was in an entire house. I think that was like her house like her parents left for her. She was in an entire house by herself. She just graduated from medical school from Egypt, and she was very like kind of like depressed and feeling lonely, and she was looking for a job, and she also wanted to practice her English. It was a perfect win-win companionship, situation. And looking back, I'm thinking, and then the guy did a whole feast, like, like going, he went to buy like some crazy meat and then prepared some crazy, like, a recipe that they do when they have guests. And then he said how I was such bringing him such good luck because the second I arrived, then he had a work contract that he was waiting for years. It's not about me. It's just like, again, I really do believe that I was just being a channel, like, the universe, the creator, the light, whatever. But it just shows you the magic of being on the Venus line, right? And these stories kept happening over and over and over again. And even this time when I traveled again to Israel, because I was in Israel like last month, and I traveled to Israel, and then the whole like the crisis started while I was there, and I ended up living in a place where the people were absolutely beautiful. All the time I spent in the bunker, I had amazing, amazing, amazing neighbors. I had some great conversation. I met some other Canadians. They literally adopt like Canadian Israelis. They adopted me, and I spent 8 magical days. Of course, it was very stressful because, again, still war, but you know what I mean? And then some other guy asked me to like do like, actually not some other guy, he was my roommate, asked me to do like a portrait of me. It's just like this crazy magical thing. So this, I'm just sharing all those stories just to share how, example, the magic of traveling to your Venus line. But then again, of course, you need to pay attention to the Venus placement in your chart, right? And what type of Venus line it is, because depending on the four angles, if it's an MC line or AC, IC, or a DC line, it's gonna be different things. For example, if it's a Venus IC line, it's mostly gonna tend to play onto like childhood, you know, things that you had, like family theme that you had. And then if it's like a DC line, it's mostly gonna play into like, you're gonna tend to have relationship that are gonna reflect some things back to you that needs to be worked on through these people. If it's like an MC line, it's gonna have more of that higher calling energy to it, where people naturally feel you and they just naturally reflect that back to you. And then if it's your AC line, it's just how you're gonna show up to other people with that intense, energy of whichever line you travel to. So this is me like oversimplifying everything to you, but I just wanted to give you an example using the Venus line, because I think it's a very popular thing that people ask. They want to travel to the Venus line, often looking for love, which works for a lot of people. But I just wanted to start talking about that. And like I said, a lot of the lines are in the middle of nowhere, so it's not that easy to just. I don't have a million Venus, Venus crossings, Venus lines. A lot of them, like I said, are in the middle of nowhere or in the middle of the ocean, which would be great, but there's nothing there, So that is generally what you can expect by doing astrocartography and using astrocartography. It's a fun way to travel. Let's say you are someone who's more flexible with time. You can travel to places, for a longer period of time. A lot of artists, a lot of writers would tend to do that. They would pick where, whatever they're using to work on. A lot of a lot of people, like just in general, that use astrology in that sense, tend to play with those energy in order to help improve, whatever life stage that they are focusing on. And it's a great, 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 great thing to do if that is something that you flexible with. It doesn't even mean that you need to stay just being on that line or close to that line. You're gonna be able to use that energy for your advantage, because what we want to do with astrology is we want to learn to go with the current, learn to go with the flow. That's always what I talk about when I'm talking about astrology, when I'm talking about human design, when I'm talking about spirituality, Kabbalah, anything. We want to learn. The reason why we're doing all of these things, because we want awareness, so we can also go with the flow, go with the energy. That's when life just is more seamless instead of fighting against the current. So that was the introduction episode about astrocartography. We're going to be diving much more into that. I'm excited about this series, and as usual, all the link down below if you want to do the birth chart reading with me, and astrocartography reading, or like transit reading, any type of astrology readings that you want to get. All the links are down below, my love, and I will see you in the next one. Keep shining bright like a diamond, and see you in the next one.